Hey there, fellow green thumb hopefuls. I know starting a vegetable garden can seem a little daunting, right?
Definitely.
Almost like you need a degree in botany just to get those seeds in the ground.
Yeah.
There's just so much information out there. Where do you even begin?
Right.
Well, fear not, because today we're taking all that how-to chaos
Yeah.
and distilling it down to the pure,
Yes.
unadulterated essentials.
I like it. Think of it as a cheat sheet for success.
Yeah.
Even if your gardening experience is limited to admiring your neighbor's prize-winning tomatoes.
Exactly. We're diving deep into how to plan a vegetable garden in 5 easy steps from Petit Garden Paradise.
Ooh,
A guide so friendly and approachable, it practically holds your hand through the entire process.
I love that.
And trust me, we're talking tips and tricks you won't find in your average gardening manual. We're talking beer for slugs
Why?
and banana peels as fertilizer.
Wow, that's amazing.
But first, let's get you oriented. This guide breaks down the process into 5 key steps. Choosing your vegetables,
Right.
sketching a garden plan, prepping the soil, planting like a pro,
Mhm.
and finally, keeping those plants happy and productive.
It's a really nice, logical progression that mirrors the real-life journey of a gardener.
Right. It's like having a roadmap to success.
Totally.
So, let's kick things off with step 1, arguably the most exciting part,
Okay.
choosing your plant posse.
All right.
Now, I have a confession. When I first started gardening,
Yeah.
I went all in, planting everything I could get my hands on. It was a glorious, chaotic jungle.
Oh, wow.
And let's just say, not everything thrived.
Yeah, that's a common mistake.
Oh, really?
Yeah. New gardeners often get over-enthusiastic,
Yeah.
which can lead to disappointment.
Yeah.
That's why this guide's emphasis on low-maintenance vegetables for beginners is so crucial.
Okay.
Starting with easy-to-grow varieties not only increases your chances of success,
Right.
but also builds confidence and excitement for future gardening endeavors.
You're so right. It's like learning to ride a bike with training wheels. You wouldn't jump straight onto a unicycle, right?
Right not.
You need those small wins to build up your skills and confidence.
For sure.
And this guide has this awesome list of beginner-friendly all-stars. We're talking lettuce, spinach,
Oh,
radishes, cherry tomatoes, zucchini,
nice.
and basil.
And these aren't just random picks.
Oh,
No, these vegetables are specifically chosen because they're relatively resilient, have quick growth cycles,
oh wow.
and can adapt to various growing
Oh,
conditions.
that's great.
Radishes, for instance, are fantastic for beginners
Mm-hmm.
because they sprout in just a few days and are ready to harvest in under a month.
Really?
Yeah, that instant gratification can be really motivating when you're just starting out.
25 days to harvest. I'm sold. Imagine the bragging rights, harvesting your own salad within a month. Plus, who doesn't love the idea of fresh pesto straight from their garden? And speaking of bragging rights, they even throw in an organic bonus section, suggesting heirloom seeds and compost as eco-friendly options.
Oh, that's a nice touch. Not only are you growing your own food, but
Mm.
you're doing it in a way that's good for the planet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for all you visual learners, the article has this super handy table
Okay.
that breaks down the sun, water,
Yeah.
and harvest time for each of our all-star veggies. Lettuce, for example, likes a bit of shade and can be harvested in about a month.
Perfect.
Radishes, on the other hand, are sun worshippers and, as we just learned, super speedy growers.
Yes.
Cherry tomatoes need a bit more time and love, but
Mhm.
the reward of those sweet, juicy bursts of flavor is well worth the wait.
I agree.
Basil is your go-to for fresh pesto all summer long.
Love it.
And zucchini, well, let's just say you might end up with enough to share with the whole neighborhood.
It's all about choosing the right plants for your lifestyle and
Yeah.
your climate.
Okay, enough with the plant selection. Let's move on to step 2, sketching out your garden plan.
Ah, yes. This is where you get to unleash your inner architect.
Right.
But don't worry, you don't need fancy software or
Yeah.
a drafting table or anything like that.
This guide is all about keeping things simple and fun. You can go digital with a Notion template if that's your jam,
Yeah.
or just grab a napkin and do a quick 5-minute doodle.
I love that.
Personally, I'm a huge fan of the doodle method.
Really?
I used to think garden planning was just for those super organized type A personalities,
Yeah.
but then I tried the 5-minute doodle,
Right.
and honestly, it's a game changer. It just helps you visualize the space
Yes.
and avoid some rookie mistakes.
Exactly. It's like a blueprint for success. A simple sketch, even on a napkin,
Right.
can help you optimize space, sunlight,
Mm-hmm.
and most importantly, plant compatibility.
Yes. Companion planting is key.
Yes, it is.
You know, I once planted beans next to my garlic,
Oh.
and let's just say they weren't happy campers. Turns out, beans and garlic are sworn enemies. Who knew plants had such strong opinions?
Well, they do. And that's why understanding companion planting is crucial.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't want to invite a frenemy to your dinner party,
Right.
Same goes for your garden. The guide even has this fun analogy
Yep.
about making sure your paths are wide enough for, like, dance moves, which I love.
Because who doesn't love a little garden groove? But seriously, it's a good reminder to think about accessibility and movement within your garden. You don't want to be tripping over tomato plants every time you need to water your basil.
Exactly. Functionality and aesthetics go hand in hand in a well-designed garden.
Now, let's get down to business with step 3, prepping the soil.
Oh, yes. This is where the magic happens.
This is where the magic happens.
It's like laying the foundation for a house. You need a strong base for your plants to thrive.
And the guide does a great job of demystifying this process.
Yeah.
No lab coat required.
Okay.
They even have this super easy squeeze test
Okay.
to figure out your soil texture. Is it sandy, clay-like, or, as Goldilocks would say, just right?
Brilliant. It's a brilliant way to make soil science accessible to everyone.
Totally. And once you know your soil type, they guide you on how to amend it accordingly. Who knew gardening could feel like a baking experiment?
Right. It's all about finding the right recipe for success.
Yeah.
They also talk about feeding your soil with organic options.
Yeah.
Like compost and mulch. You know, I was intimidated by composting at first.
Right.
I thought it was like this complicated, smelly process.
Yeah.
But this guide even throws in a lazy gardener compost hack
Okay.
that's perfect for people like me. It's so simple, even I can't mess it up.
You and me both.
And speaking of simple, they have this quick reference table
Okay.
that breaks down each soil prep task, the tools you'll need, and how long it'll take. I'm all about efficiency in the garden.
Me too. Time is precious. And this guide helps you maximize it.
Yes.
Okay, we've chosen our plants, sketched out our garden plan, and prepped our soil like pros.
Yes.
Now it's time for the main event, planting.
Oh, this is where things get real.
Yeah.
But don't worry. The guide makes it feel totally manageable, even for those of us who are, like, planting challenged.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of planting, should we go with seeds or starter plants? I've always struggled with that decision.
It's a common dilemma.
Yeah.
Starting from seeds can be more cost-effective and gives you a wider variety of options.
Right.
But it does require more patience and a bit of finesse.
Okay.
Starter plants, on the other hand, give you a head start
Right.
and can be a good option for those who want quicker results
Yeah.
or lack the space to start seeds indoors.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's say we've decided on our planting method. What's next?
Well, before you get your hands dirty, it's crucial to check your local frost dates
Right.
to determine the ideal planting time for different vegetables.
Okay.
You don't want to put those tender seedlings out too early
Yeah.
and risk a frosty demise.
Right. Timing is everything in the gardening world.
Yes.
And speaking of timing, there's this amazing tip in the guide about staggered planting.
Okay.
Basically, you plant small batches of your veggies every few weeks instead of all at once.
It's a brilliant strategy for ensuring a continuous harvest
Oh, wow.
throughout the season. Imagine fresh lettuce all summer long.
Okay, I'm officially adding staggered planting to my gardening arsenal. But let's get back to the actual planting process. Yeah. What's the secret formula for success?
The guide lays out a simple 5-step, no-stress planting formula.
Okay.
It's all about digging the right size holes,
Right.
planting your seeds or starters at the correct depth, covering them with soil, watering thoroughly,
Yeah.
and labeling clearly.
That labeling part is key. I can't tell you how many times I've forgotten what I've planted where.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
And when it comes to watering,
Yeah.
remember the moist cake, not a swamp analogy.
Yeah.
You want the soil to be damp, but not soggy.
I love that. It's such a vivid and helpful image.
Same there.
Okay, so we've planted our little green babies. What's next?
No, it's all about providing them with the TLC they need to thrive.
Oh.
Regular watering, mulching to help retain moisture and suppress weeds,
Right.
and some basic pest control are all essential.
Speaking of pests, the guide is a goldmine of natural solutions.
Yep.
I especially love the idea of planting marigolds as natural pest repellents.
Oh, yes.
It's like gardening with a touch of whimsy.
Whimsical, yes, but also incredibly effective.
Right.
Marigolds are known to deter certain pests,
hmm
making them a great addition to any vegetable garden.
So we've covered choosing our plants, sketching out our garden plan,
Yes.
prepping our soil, and even planting like pros. But the journey doesn't end there, does it?
No, not at all. The real fun begins with step 5, keeping it alive and eating the proof.
The title itself is a celebration, acknowledging that we've come a long way from those initial feelings of overwhelm.
Yeah, it's a testament to the guide's supportive and encouraging tone throughout.
Absolutely. And while we're on the topic of support, the guide dives into a lazy gardener maintenance routine because let's be real,
Yeah.
not everyone has hours to spend tending to their garden.
Right. I mean, life happens. We've got jobs,
Mhm.
families, Netflix binges to catch up on.
Exactly.
So this lazy gardener routine is a lifesaver.
Okay, tell us more.
It's all about focusing on the essentials.
Yeah.
Watering, weeding,
Right.
and basic pest control. They even have these handy watering hacks,
Okay.
like the finger test. Just stick your finger in the soil to see if it's dry.
Yeah.
And emphasizing the importance of morning watering
Right.
to minimize evaporation.
Okay, those are some seriously genius tips, even
Aye.
for non-lazy gardeners. What about weeding? Any hacks for making that chore a little less, well, chore-like?
They actually have this hilarious little quip. Weeding is cheaper than therapy. Prove me wrong.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Can't argue with that. I actually find weeding quite therapeutic in a weird way.
Really?
It's like a meditative practice, getting your hands dirty,
Mm-hmm.
connecting with nature.
I hear you. There's something very grounding about it.
Yeah.
And when it comes to pests,
Yeah.
the guide keeps it simple and natural
Okay.
with solutions like soap spray for aphids and,
Mhm.
wait for it,
What?
beer traps for slugs.
Okay, that's amazing. I've heard about beer traps, but I never actually tried them. So basically, you set out a shallow dish of beer,
Yeah.
and the slugs, attracted by the yeast, crawl in,
Yeah.
and, well, let's just say they party a little too hard.
Exactly. It's a classic trick that exploits their love for a good time.
Oh, it's gardening with a side of dark humor, which I fully appreciate. But let's be real, the true reward of all this hard work is the harvest, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the guide doesn't disappoint.
Yeah.
They provide specific tips for harvesting different vegetables,
Okay.
like snipping outer lettuce leaves to encourage regrowth,
Hmm.
picking tomatoes when they're slightly soft and colorful,
Yeah.
and harvesting those zucchinis when they're young and tender before they turn into baseball bats.
I've definitely been guilty of letting my zucchini get too big. They just grow so fast.
They do.
But seriously, there's nothing quite like the satisfaction of eating food you grew yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's like giving a tiny middle finger to grocery store prices.
Yes. It's a feeling of accomplishment and self-sufficiency that's hard to beat.
Yeah.
And, of course, no gardening guide would be complete without a troubleshooting section.
Right, because let's face it, even with the best intentions, things can go wrong.
Oh, yeah.
You might encounter yellow leaves,
Mhm.
a lack of flowers,
Yeah.
or those inevitable bug buffets.
Exactly. And this section is a lifesaver. They tackle those common problems head on,
Okay.
providing clear and concise solutions.
Nice.
It's like having a gardening guru on speed dial.
Speaking of gurus, they drop this organic bonus tip about using crushed eggshells to deter slugs. Apparently, those little critters hate crawling over sharp edges. It's like a mini obstacle course for slugs.
It's a simple yet effective technique
Yeah.
that aligns perfectly with the guide's overall emphasis on organic and sustainable gardening practices.
So there you have it. 5 easy steps that take you from plant killer to garden guru, all while keeping things fun,
Yeah.
approachable, and even a little bit humorous.
It's a journey filled with delicious rewards and a newfound appreciation for the magic of nature.
But before we move on, I have to ask, what about all the questions that inevitably pop up along the way? Like, how much time does a vegetable garden actually take? What about those of us who, let's say, are a bit forgetful when it comes to watering?
Mm-hmm.
And what about those pesky pests that seem to appear out of nowhere?
You know, you're right. We've covered the 5 main steps,
Yeah.
but there's a whole world of gardening knowledge beyond that.
Right.
And lucky for us, this guide anticipates those questions and has some answers. Let's dive into those next.
All right, let's do it.
You know, it's funny you should mention those common gardening anxieties.
Yeah.
The guide actually has a whole section dedicated to FAQs,
Oh, nice.
and it addresses those exact concerns.
Really? Okay, let's dive into those. First up, the age-old question.
Yeah.
How much time does tending a vegetable garden actually take?
Right.
I mean, we're not all retired folks
Right.
with endless hours to dedicate to our tomato plants.
Right. And this guide gets that. It's all about finding that balance
Yeah.
between gardening and, living your life.
Mm.
They recommend setting aside about 10 to 15 minutes per day for quick check-ins and watering,
Okay.
then maybe another 30 minutes a week
Okay.
for things like weeding, pest control, and of course, harvesting those delicious rewards.
Okay, that's totally manageable, even for someone with a jam-packed schedule.
Yeah.
But what about those of us who are, shall we say, a bit forgetful when it comes to watering?
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely been guilty of letting my plants get a little too thirsty on occasion.
They've got you covered.
Oh, good.
The guide talks about choosing drought-tolerant varieties,
Right?
like zucchini, beans, and peppers. These tough guys can handle a little bit of neglect.
Genius. So it's like strategic plant selection for the forgetful gardener.
Exactly.
I like that.
They also recommend mulching to help retain moisture in the soil.
Okay.
Think of it like a cozy blanket for your plants,
Yeah.
keeping them cool and hydrated. And if all else fails, there are always those handy phone reminders or even self-watering spikes
Right.
for the tech-savvy gardener.
Okay, I'm loving all these practical tips. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, or rather, the aphids on the lettuce. Pest control.
Ah, yes, those unwelcome garden guests.
Right.
But fear not, the guide is a treasure trove of natural solutions.
I'm all ears. Spill the organic tea.
Well, we've already talked about those classic beer traps for slugs.
Yeah,
Always a crowd pleaser, especially for the slugs.
gotta love a little garden humor. But what about other pests like those pesky aphids I mentioned?
They recommend a simple DIY soap spray,
Okay.
which is basically just a mixture of water and dish soap. It's super effective and won't harm your plants or beneficial insects.
Nice. So we're being kind to the environment and our wallets.
Yes.
Any other clever pest control tricks up their sleeve?
Well, remember that companion planting magic we talked about earlier?
Hmm?
Turns out, certain plants are like little bodyguards for your veggies.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Tell me more about these plant protectors.
For example, planting marigolds near your veggies can help repel those nasty nematodes,
Oh.
which are tiny little worms that can wreak havoc on your roots.
Marigolds, the unsung heroes of the garden. What else?
Basil, besides being delicious in pesto, can actually confuse those pesky tomato hornworms. Apparently, the scent throws them off their game,
Okay.
making it harder for them to find their favorite snack, your precious tomato plants.
So it's a strategic aromatherapy for the garden. I love it.
It's all about working with nature, not against it.
Hmm.
By understanding these plant relationships, we can create a more balanced and harmonious ecosystem in our gardens.
You know, we've talked about those common gardening anxieties, time commitment, forgetfulness, and those pesky pests. But even with all the best intentions and careful planning, things can still go wrong, right? Like, what if my plants start looking a little sad with yellow leaves? Or maybe they just refuse to flower?
You're right, those are classic gardening dilemmas.
Yeah.
And the good news is, the guide has a whole section dedicated to troubleshooting
Okay.
those exact problems. It's like having a gardening therapist on call.
Okay, I need this. Tell me everything.
Well, for starters, yellow leaves can often be a sign of overwatering.
Oh, okay.
It's a common mistake,
Yeah.
especially for new gardeners.
Yeah.
We tend to shower our plants with love, but sometimes that love can be a little too much.
It's the drowning with love syndrome. Been there, done that. So what's the solution? Just back off on the watering.
Exactly. Let the soil dry out a bit between waterings.
Hmm.
And your plants should perk right up. And if your plants are refusing to bloom,
Yeah.
it could be a sign that they're lacking phosphorus,
Oh.
a key nutrient for flower production.
Okay, so how do we give our plants a phosphorus boost? Do we need to run to the garden center and buy some fancy fertilizer?
Not necessarily. The guide actually suggests a super simple and natural solution.
Okay.
Banana peel tea.
Wait, what? Banana peel tea. That sounds interesting. Tell me more.
It's exactly what it sounds like. You just soak some banana peels in water for a couple of days,
Mhm.
and voila, you have a potassium-rich fertilizer that's basically garden gold for flowering plants.
That's amazing. Who knew banana peels were so magical? This is why I love this guide. It's full of these unexpected, sustainable tips
Yeah,
that make you feel like a gardening genius.
it's all about those aha moments, right?
Yeah.
And speaking of genius tips,
Mhm.
the guide also addresses those inevitable bug attacks.
Right.
They offer a range of natural solutions,
Okay.
from planting those trusty marigolds to sprinkling cinnamon or even cayenne pepper around the base of your plants.
Okay, hold up. Cinnamon and cayenne pepper. Is
Yeah.
this a recipe for a spicy salsa or a pest control strategy?
Believe it or not, both.
Hmm.
Apparently, those strong scents can deter certain pests,
Really?
creating a natural barrier around your precious veggies.
It's like a force field of flavor. I
Mhm.
love it. So we've learned that we don't need to resort to harsh chemicals to keep those pesky bugs at bay.
Right.
Nature provides us with all the tools we need.
Exactly. And that's a key takeaway from this guide.
Yeah.
It's all about embracing a more sustainable and organic approach to gardening.
After diving into all these FAQs, I'm
Mhm.
realizing that one of the biggest mistakes we make as newbie gardeners is overcomplicating things.
Yes.
This guide does such a great job of breaking down those complex concepts and making them feel totally doable.
I totally agree. It's all about starting small, focusing on those easy-to-grow varieties,
Yeah.
and not being afraid to ask questions or seek out advice.
And let's not forget the power of repurposing. I mean, who knew that kitchen scraps could be a gardener's gold? Those coffee grounds, eggshells, and veggie scraps aren't trash.
No.
They're compost in the making.
It's a beautiful cycle, right?
Yeah.
We nourish our bodies with food, and then those leftovers nourish our gardens,
Yeah.
which in turn nourish us again.
Okay, that's getting a little deep, but I love it. It's all about that connection with nature
Yeah.
and the realization that we're all part of this interconnected web of life.
Beautifully said.
Hmm.
And speaking of connections, the guide actually has a fantastic bonus resource, a free master plant list Notion template.
Oh, cool.
It's like a cheat sheet for over 100 plants,
Wow.
providing detailed information on their needs, companion planting pairings, growth timelines, and even like troublemaker alerts
Right.
for potential pests or problems.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. For those
Yeah.
of us who love a good organizational tool, tell me more about this template.
Well, imagine having all the essential information about your plants
Yeah.
right at your fingertips.
Right.
You can say goodbye to those late-night Googling sessions,
Mhm.
trying to figure out if your tomatoes and cucumbers can coexist peacefully.
So no more plant drama. Sign me up.
Exactly. The master plant list takes all the guesswork out of gardening, allowing you to make informed decisions based on reliable data.
Mm-hmm.
It's like having a personal gardening assistant right in your pocket.
I love how this source seamlessly blends practical advice with a touch of humor
Mm-hmm.
and encouragement.
Yeah.
It never feels overwhelming or intimidating, even for someone who's never touched a trowel before.
That's one of the things that makes this guide so special.
Yeah.
It's designed to empower beginners, breaking down complex concepts into bite-sized pieces
Right.
and using relatable analogies and language to make gardening feel accessible and fun.
Speaking of fun, remember those plant frenemies we were talking about earlier?
Oh.
The ones who just can't seem to get along in the garden?
Yes.
Well, this master plant list spills all the tea on those dramatic plant relationships.
Oh, I know. It's like a garden soap opera. Remember that bean and garlic feud we talked about?
Yes.
Turns out potatoes and zucchini should also maintain a safe distance.
Oh,
On the other hand, tomatoes and basil are a match made in garden heaven, and carrots and onions also enjoy each other's company.
fascinating. It's not just about providing the right soil, water, and sunlight. It's also about understanding the social dynamics of the plant world.
Exactly. By learning about these relationships, we can create a more thriving and balanced ecosystem in our gardens.
Mm.
And let's not forget the practical benefits of companion planting. For example, that basil planted alongside your tomatoes can actually help deter those pesky tomato hornworms,
Right.
while marigolds keep those nasty nematodes at bay.
It's like a win-win situation for everyone involved, except maybe for the hornworms and nematodes.
Right. They'll just have to find a new party to crash. But we've been talking a lot about companion planting and pest control.
Yeah.
But there's one plant that deserves its own spotlight,
Okay.
the mighty zucchini.
Oh, yes. The zucchini. I've heard tales of these prolific plants taking over entire gardens. Is it true? Are they really that powerful?
Well, let's just say they have a reputation for being, shall we say, enthusiastic growers.
So how do we prevent a zucchini takeover? I don't want to end up with enough zucchini bread to feed a small army.
The guide has some great advice for managing these green giants.
Okay.
First, make sure to give them plenty of space, at least 3 feet apart.
Okay.
Second, harvest them regularly when they're young and tender, before they reach baseball bat proportions.
That's a helpful visual. I can definitely picture a baseball bat-sized zucchini.
And finally, if you do find yourself with an abundance of zucchini, don't be afraid to share the bounty with friends, neighbors, or even your local food bank.
It's a great reminder that gardening is not just about self-sufficiency, it's also about community and sharing the abundance.
And speaking of sharing,
Yeah.
the guide encourages readers to brag a little about their garden successes. Post those proud harvest pics on social media. Let the world know you're a plant whisperer.
Oh, I'm all about celebrating those garden victories. It's a testament to our hard work and dedication. Plus, who knows, maybe our garden pics will inspire others to embark on their own gardening adventures.
It's a wonderful way to spread the joy of gardening
Mm-hmm.
and connect with a community of like-minded individuals.
And let's not forget the importance of learning from others, whether it's through online forums, local gardening groups, or simply chatting with experienced gardeners in your neighborhood.
It's a reminder that we don't have to go it alone on this gardening journey.
Yeah.
There's a wealth of knowledge and support available to us if we're open to seeking it out.
You know, I'm realizing that this gardening journey is about so much more than just growing vegetables. It's about connecting with nature, fostering a sense of community, and embracing those imperfections and unexpected twists and turns.
Absolutely. It's about experimenting, learning from our mistakes,
Yeah.
and celebrating those little victories along the way.
And let's not forget the importance of a good dose of humor and a willingness to laugh at ourselves when things inevitably go awry.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, gardening can be messy, unpredictable, and sometimes downright hilarious.
And that's all part of its charm.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we're not in control of everything,
Right.
and that sometimes the best we can do is roll with the punches and enjoy the ride.
Okay, so we've covered those common gardening anxieties, explored the master plant list, and even delved into the world of companion planting and pest control. But as we wrap up our deep dive into this amazing guide, I want to leave you with a final thought-provoking question. With all this newfound knowledge and inspiration, how can you make your garden more than just a source of fresh veggies? Can it become like a catalyst for connection, creativity, or maybe even like a little bit of peace and tranquility in your daily life?
I love that question. It really challenges us to think beyond the practicalities of gardening
Yeah.
and consider its deeper potential.
Right. I mean, we've talked about sharing our harvest with loved ones, but maybe it's also about like inviting friends over for a garden-themed potluck
Okay.
where everyone brings a dish
Right.
featuring their homegrown produce.
That's a fantastic idea. Or what about using those fresh herbs and veggies as inspiration for like new culinary creations?
Yeah.
Your garden could become a source of endless recipe inspiration.
Okay, stop. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. But it's not just about food, right?
Right.
Gardening can also be a wonderful way to connect with nature, even if you only have a small balcony or patio space.
Absolutely. Imagine stepping outside in the morning, sipping your coffee
Yeah.
amidst the fragrant herbs and vibrant blossoms. It's like creating your own little oasis of
Yeah.
peace and tranquility right in your backyard.
It's like a mini vacation without the packing
Yeah.
or the airport security lines. Sign me up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the therapeutic benefits of gardening.
Yeah.
There's something incredibly grounding and satisfying about getting your hands dirty,
Yeah.
nurturing life, and watching those tiny seeds transform into beautiful, edible plants.
It's a powerful reminder that we're all part of this interconnected web of life.
Beautifully said. I think that's the perfect note to end on.
I agree. So, dear listener, as you embark on your gardening journey, remember that it's about so much more than just growing vegetables. It's about connecting with nature,
Right.
fostering a sense of community,
Yeah.
embracing those imperfections,
Yeah.
and finding moments of joy, creativity, and peace amidst the chaos of daily life.
And remember, every seed you plant, every weed you pull, every tomato you savor is a testament to your connection with nature and your ability to nurture life.
Go forth, intrepid gardeners, and may your gardens be filled with abundance, joy, and a healthy dose of laughter along the way.